Well, when I got into office, we had to get our sea legs. I had to set up a process because, my view is it's an appropriate punishment for the worst offenders. We have lengthy reviews and appeals that I think should be shorter, but but I still have a responsibility to look at these cases and to be sure that the person's guilty. And if I honestly thought somebody wasn't, I would not pull the trigger on it. And so we had to do that. Then what happened when COVID hit, it threw a wrench into our corrections. We had to make different changes. And there was a lot going on during COVID, as you remember. And so that kind of just developed a momentum. It wasn't intentional. It was just there was a lot of other stuff. But then I think what happened was, we've heard from a lot of the family members of the victims over the years. And if you think about it, some of these crimes were committed in the 80s. And they wait, and there's appeal, and this and that. And it's like, there's a saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And so I felt that I owed it to them to make sure that this ran very smoothly and promptly. Now, there's a lot that goes into it before it ever gets on my desk. I think that should happen quick, because I do think the death penalty could be a strong deterrent if you had this stuff happen quicker. And there's some instances where somebody goes and shoots 10 people, they should get the death penalty very quickly. And so I think it's been tough for a lot of families. And so, we were getting feedback, and, it was all, I kind of felt like I may have been letting some of them down. It wasn't intentional. There were a lot of other things that happened. So what we're doing is we're doing it to be able to bring justice to the victims' families. And I think it's important. And I've had people, sometimes they'll come to the office after, and you can just see, after decades, the weight that's kind of been lifted, because they never fully had closure on, and these are really horrific crimes that are happening. So that's really why we're doing it. It's victim driven, and I know we had some interruptions, but it wasn't intentional. We were trying to, as a new governor, you want to come in and get it right. And then a year into my tenure, we had COVID, and it changed kind of how we were managing the corrections a little bit. And there were just things that were going on, but I think we're in a good spot now, and I want to make sure that people that have exhausted all these appeals over many years, sometimes decades, like when all that's done and they're there, and there's victims' families that are wanting to see justice, that I'm doing my part to deliver that.
So in the state of Florida, that's about 1.17 million people. Now that the funding has expired, has there been any change in the state's position in terms of particularly making sure that children in the state of Florida have access to food or more food secure than they were?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. So one, you look at our Department of Agriculture under Commissioner Wilton Simpson, they're mobilizing because, you have great communities throughout this state that produce food, and we have food banks, and so they're doing that. They're going to be doing more, and I think that's great. But the second part of that is, I'm getting letters from Democrats saying you should declare an emergency and create your own SNAP, when they're the ones that are filibustering SNAP. Are you kidding me? And here's the thing, like, as a Republican, I'm like, the Republicans 100% just about are voting to continue the current budget that's in place, which, oh, by the way, is actually Biden's budget. There should be a lot of fiscal conservatives that are like, wait a minute, why are you continuing Biden's budget? But that's not the debate. The Democrats, they're objecting to continuing Biden's budget. They are doing this in the Senate. They're doing it for political purposes. So I just think, the gall to be complaining about it when you're the one that's causing it. I just think, look, sometimes you don't get surprised with some of these politicians, but that is really a doozy for what they're trying to do. So any U.S. senator who's concerned about what could happen with those programs, they have a very easy solution. They can just simply vote to continue the programs and continue funding it. You've had over 40 of them that have voted no when it came time to continue. So I know there's a lot of mobilization in Florida. I know that our Department of Agriculture is leading, and we're happy to support those efforts. But the idea that somehow the federal government, these Democrats are holding up the funding, and that the state of Florida should just all of a sudden create our own program to mimic it. First of all, we wouldn't be able to administer something. I mean, it would take a long time. So the easiest solution to it, if this is something you're concerned about, is that they should stop holding up the funding for the program, because I know it's been passed in the House, U.S. House, and I know the Senate has gotten a majority of vote to continue this for many, many times, but you just have kind of the rump caucus of the and what are they doing? They're trying to be relevant. They're trying to do, I mean, honestly, like, I think they're just trying to throw things against the wall and hope something sticks. Forcing the boys and women's sports, that didn't work out well for them. Having an open border, that didn't work out well for them. Increasing all the spending under Biden, which really helped fuel inflation, that didn't work out well for them. So I think they're trying to figure out, and I think they think that somehow this is going to end up helping them politically, but that's all it is a political game. It's not being driven by any, real substance. And then they say, well, we want more COVID-era subsidies, which, first of all, don't even have anything to do with the actual budget. That's a supplementary thing. And so they're holding it up to try to play games on this other stuff. And I just think I think it's bad governance. So. But the state, I think, with the agriculture and stuff, that there's definitely movement. But man, I mean, they could end this tomorrow. They could end it tomorrow, and they are choosing not to do that. Thank you.